space is Casa Ben Linder, named after Ben Linder, of course. In 1988, a group of North Americans living in Nicaragua bought this house. They were called the Committee of U.S. Citizens Living in Nicaragua. Sorry, not in North America, living in Managua. So, Committee of U.S. Citizens Living in Nicaragua. And they were the ones who led the protests every Thursday morning in front of the U.S. Embassy during the Contra War. And in 1988, the U.S. had just staged the invasion of Grenada. And people, the general thinking was that that was a practice run for Nicaragua, and people thought that the U.S. was going to invade Nicaragua. And so these U.S. citizens who were living here, who were working for the revolution and against the war, felt they needed a safe place to be. The U.S. invaded, where could they go that would be safe? And so they bought this house. And they named it after Ben Linder, learning from our Nicaraguan brothers and sisters that you honor your heroes and martyrs, and Ben Linder is our hero and martyr as U.S. citizens of Nicaragua. And so the house was home to different organizations through the years. One of the main organizations that was here was Father Miguel Descoto's organization called CDCA. So he was in the house here from about 1990 through 2006 or 7. And Father Miguel was a great lover of Nicaraguan art. He was a married old priest who was the foreign minister of Nicaragua in the 1980s. He was also the president of the General Assembly of the United Nations in 2008 and 2009. If you want to know what the UN should look like, read what Father Miguel had to say about it, because he had a whole plan for bringing the UN back to what it was supposed to be in its charter. He was a great believer in the UN, but recognized that it's not functioning the way it is currently. So he was a lover of Nicaraguan art, and during the neoliberal years, one of the things that happened was that the neoliberal governments that came in tried to erase the revolution. And one of the major visible demonstrations of the revolution were the murals. There hadn't really been muralism in Nicaragua prior to the revolution, and during the 1980s it just exploded, and there were murals in schools, and there were murals all over. That whole boulevard of the Bolivar to Chavez Boulevard had a wall running down it that had Latin America's history painted on it. And all of those murals, as soon as the neoliberal government came into power, Arnaldo Leman, who was the mayor of Managua, sent his workers out at nighttime to paint over them in gray paint and erase the revolution. They erased beautiful murals. We have a book here that has murals, photos of the murals that were lost. And so during that time, muralists were going to Europe to try to find work. There were no murals happening in Nicaragua. And communities were coming out to protect their murals that they had from being painted over at nighttime. And so in this house, Father Miguel commissioned the mural on the front of the house, and then in the space of about 3 years, commissioned 11 more murals in this house in order to provide work for the muralists and to provide beauty around. So the organization that owned the house, which was originally the U.S. citizens living in Nicaragua, had the house up until 2017. And during 25 years, after the Contra War ended, for 25 years there were talks here on Thursday morning. So from the protests in front of the U.S. Embassy, we came to doing talks here about anything happening in Nicaragua and having kind of solidarity time on Thursdays. And that kind of dwindled by the 2010, 2015. It was dwindling, and the folks who owned the house got to a point where the income from the organizations that were renting really couldn't cover the upkeep of the house. And they came to our organization, the Jubilee House Community, and said, we think we're going to sell the house. And we, when we moved to Nicaragua in 1994, this was our home base. This is where our fax machine was back in the days. This is where our telephone was. And so we said, you can't sell the house. You sell the house, and all those murals are going to disappear. Someone's going to just tear it down and build something else and clean over the murals. You can't do that. You have to give it to an organization that wants to keep it open and have it be a public space where people can come see the murals. And they go, well, do you want to do that? So that's how we wound up getting the house donated. And we in 2017, and I can tell you more about what we do, but we in 2017 were receiving 10 to 15 delegations a year. And we thought, wow, if we turned into a place where we keep our delegations, then we save money and we can keep the house going. It would be great. We could rent out space because for all the tourists coming to Nicaragua, right? So we got our first room finished in April of 2018.
Oh wow!
So that's been our story, and but we going, and I'll show you around the murals, and then we can sit down and have some lunch. There's all the murals about Ben. I'll show you these ones too. This one is called Empowerment. This one was painted by an artist called Julia Aguirre, who was part of the practice movement in the 1960s, which is a very revolutionary artist collective. And another member of that same collective did these petroglyphs, which are called petroglyphs of Matagalpa. We're going to Matagalpa tomorrow, but I also have a chance to see these particular petroglyphs with their based on actual petroglyphs of Matagalpa. And then this one over here with all the
What's
faces.
The
Like a indigenous stone carving. Yeah.
Really show this one on this land.
The spiral.
The spiral. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. So these ones over here, this was painted by a volunteer from the Netherlands who came with a Sister City project in 1993. And we've been in touch with him, and he says that when he showed up here, he agreed to paint a mural, and Father Miguel had the tiles laid out here in the patio and said, all right, I want you to paint all of my heroes. So I want you to paint Martin Luther King Jr., a Nicaraguan working woman, Dorothy Day, Jesus Christ, but he's not going to look like the Jesus you usually see. A Nicaraguan indigenous woman, Tolstoy, a Mayagna Nicaraguan indigenous girl, and Gandhi.
Cool.
And so that volunteer painted those, and it's one of the most unusual murals we have here because he used the terracotta tile as the shading for the portraits. But in all these murals we would love to restore, but it's we haven't quite managed to. We're just trying to keep the doors open at this point. Haven't quite managed to restore the murals yet. This one over here.
There's the painting.
That's your painting?
Yeah, that's the one that I bought and donated.
So this one.
From the artist, he's well known.
Mario Montenegro.
Mario
Yep.
Montenegro.
He's a singer and an artist, and I don't think there's any creative thing that Mario doesn't do.
A picture
He's
next to
very
that, wouldn't
creative. Very creative.
Want to say anything?
No. Oh, your video?
On video, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, a beautiful portrait by Nicaraguan artist of Ben Linder.
Beautiful, yeah, got it.
And so we have, these are the rooms we have. We have delegations that come and stay with us. We just had a women's rights themed delegation that came. And there's the bathrooms that got air conditioning.
This is the first room completed.
This is the first one we completed, yeah.
Who's Pablo Rosales?
Pablo Rosales. So, learning about electricity with his dad in Portland. So, those of you who are from Portland might know that there's not as many electrical storms in Portland, but we play fast and loose with, geography and biology or whatever that is here in our painting. Artistic license, right? So that's been learning about electricity, and this is him graduating from the University of Washington with his backpack, ready to head off into Nicaragua.
Cool.
We'll get it cleaned up in a little while, but anyway, this is the last one in the series of The Rainbow's Name is Ben, which is based on a poem about Ben Linder. And this one shows his work in the north of Nicaragua. So Ben and his team went up north to a place called El Cuá, and the idea was that when you are, the places that didn't have electricity were much more danger from the Contra, because the Contra would attack when it was dark. Right. So if you could get electricity to a place, people were safer. So they would have to put in a microhydro system to electrify El Cuá. And when they got that one done, they went further north, near the Honduran border, to a place called San Jose de Bocay, which had an army base there, and was kind of a booming center because refugees from the war from all over had come there where it was safer, and they were trying to get a hydroelectric system put in there in the spring of 1987. At that time, Ben knew that he was in danger. He knew that his name was on a list. He knew that the work that he was doing was important, and he felt that it was worth the risk to try to help Nicaragua and contribute to the revolution. He was working to measure for the weir in that area. They were having to go in at the very end of the rainy season and measure the water at its lowest point, and then the idea was that they could, get the project started in the next year. They knew that if they missed this window of opportunity and the rain started, they would have to wait a whole other year before they could really get the project going. So they were violating the protocol, which is don't ever go out the same place at the same time, for any length of time. Don't be predictable. And so they went out several days in a row trying to get this done. On the morning of April 28, 1987, Ben and a group of workers left San Jose de Bocay with the mules and some cement to build the weir, and went up to where they were building it. Now, I've been to that spot, and if you know anything about electricity, you know that it's not this placid stream. To get any electricity, you've got to have a lot more drop than that. So it doesn't quite look like this, but there was a big ravine and with a lot of rocks in the river. And Ben was there sitting down writing in his notebook. There were two people near Ben at the time, Pablo Rosales and Sergio Hernandez. And the Contra were there waiting for them. They were ambushed by the Contra. The Contra threw a grenade down into the stream and then came down and shot Ben at point blank range in the forehead. Then they went to Sergio Hernandez and shot him, and Pablo Rosales was a little further down the stream. He was bayoneted through the heart. And
was Ben wounded by the grenade first?
Wounded by the grenade first, yeah. The important, there's lots of important parts about that, but one of the things is that the United States then later said, oh, he was caught in the crossfire. There was no crossfire at all. It was an ambush by the Contra, and Ben was killed on purpose. And a lot of people say that that's because they were trying to see, could we get away with killing Ben Linder? And if we can get away with killing Ben Linder, can we get away with killing all of these pesky North Americans who are in Nicaragua fighting for the revolution or working with the revolution? Because they had killed people from all other countries. They had killed Europeans. They'd killed a whole host of people, and it was very important to,
And that's the same area where Brian Wilson and the Better Street rebuilding schools and clinics that have been destroyed by the Congress.
Right. And so people luckily rose up and protested in the United States against Ben's death, and they didn't try killing more North Americans. But the book about Ben is called The Death of Ben Linder, because his death was such a significant thing when the U.S. is funding the Contras who then killed the U.S. citizens. So 50,000 Nicaraguans were killed, but you kill one gringo, and it makes an impact. And so the two Nicaraguans who were killed with Ben, Sergio Hernandez was a father of 7. He was 33 years old. He had lived with his family at a cooperative in Los Cedros, where they had 60 families living. And the cooperative had been attacked numbers of times. The Contra had come and burned all their houses. They had slaughtered 100 head of cattle, and they had kidnapped a teacher and a nurse from that community. And so that cooperative, Sergio and his family moved to San Jose de Bocay, where it was safer, and he was working as a day laborer, just helping with the project. Pablo Rosales was also father of 4. He and his cousin had been kidnapped by the Contra a year previous to be forced to fight with the Contras. He and his cousin managed to escape, but they couldn't go back to their farm after that because they would be targets. So they moved into San Jose de Bocay. Every year, the group of folks that did manage to build this dam and provide electricity, they're still in existence. They provide electricity to about 60% of the region at this point. And they have other projects they're working on. They're a group of former Sandinistas, former Contras, and whoever else combined working in peace to provide electricity to people. And they commemorate the anniversary of Ben and Sergio and Pablo's deaths every year. And this last year, for the first time, Sergio's family came. So thanks to the magic of the internet, people move a lot during war and nobody knows what happens to them. But through the magic of the internet, one of Sergio's daughters found out about this, and she brought some of her brothers and sisters.
What is that anniversary?
It's the 28th of April.
28th of April.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming up soon. Well, it's so wonderful you keep Ben's legacy alive, especially in this wonderful Casa Ben Linder.
Yeah. We've got one more mural if you have time, and then we'll use the other. The sun and the rain from coming in. But this mural was started in 2012 by an artist that's from a neighborhood near here, who's called Gerardo Arias, a cubist artist, cubism artist. And this mural is called "The Light That They Lit Will Shine Forever." And that is something that they say about Ben Linder and his comrades who are working with him, that the light they lit will shine forever. And so that's the name of this. It has the theme of course, Ben and Sergio and Pablo. It's dedicated to the three of them, but it also has the theme of electricity and alternative electricity running through it.
Yeah.
So you can see the hydroelectric starting here. We have this water moving throughout the mural. We have three angels in the background and the dove of peace. We have the figure in the middle represents Ben bringing electricity. And then we have people working for the revolution here. We have the light bulb, and with the light bulb you have the pencil because you can study when you have electricity and light. You have books and the pickaxe. Moving through here you can see the wind energy. We have wind energy coming through here, and we have a young boy who's studying, and the position of his hand on his face shows us that he is maybe a future poet, because the pictures, the photographs and paintings that we have of Rubén Darío show him like this, our most famous Nicaraguan painter. We also play with the word plant here. He's a poet, he's Nicaragua's poet. Yeah, I mean, everyone in Nicaragua is a poet until you prove otherwise, but he's our most famous one. We play with the word here, plant, because in Spanish the word planta means can be a generator in the electricity terms, and also a plant. And so here we have leaves with circuit boards, right? And we have people who are bringing the electricity. We have a calla lily light bulb, and we have vines that are the cables for the electricity. We've got the solar panels here, and we have the solar power. The on-off button is the sun, and people are planting or plugging in a plant here to provide electricity. And we have the geothermal electricity here in the corner from the volcanoes. This represents to us that Nicaragua had about 23% of its electricity in 2006 was generated by renewable energy. Today, between 70 and 80% of Nicaragua's electricity is generated with renewables. So we have all these methods. We have 3 functioning geothermal plants and another one hopefully on the way, as well as solar and wind and hydro.
What is the each of those lights is inside